What is up, guys? It is Max here, and today I'm coming at you guys with a reaction to 3 true house-sitting stories, obviously by the man himself, Mr. Nightmare. So sorry I have not posted in a while, but anyway, let's get into this. What did I just do? Oh, the internet sucks. Oh, I skipped like 90% of the video. Solid. House-sitting horror stories.
A couple weeks ago, my dad came home and pitched me a small job offer. One of his coworkers was going away for a few days and needed somebody he could trust to watch over his house.
Cool.
The reason my dad pitched this to me was because the man's house has a big CCTV system, basically a camera in every room, and then an operating desk where all screens could be watched on a big monitor.
Damn,
And I'm a
where does
computer
this guy
science
live in?
major,
The
so my
Pentagon?
dad just always assumes that I know how to work anything technological. The man told my dad that he'd pay me $200 for the 2 days just to watch the house. Whatever that meant. My dad drove me to the house and introduced me to the man, whose name doesn't matter. The man made it seem like he preferred I stay in the upstairs room with the monitors as opposed to roaming the house all day. That was fine with me, though. So when I wasn't eating, I was mostly just sitting in that room with the TV on in the background and doing schoolwork on my laptop. Ironically, the thing I was doing the least was keeping an eye on the monitors.
Sounds about right.
Night came. I started wondering where in the house I should sleep, since surprisingly, we hadn't discussed that. So I sat back down at the desk and looked at all the different rooms on the screens to see which rooms had beds or couches. I noticed something I wasn't expecting to notice, though. The back screen door was open downstairs. I didn't remember it being open.
Fuck
I looked
that.
through each and every camera screen in a panic. In the living room, a closet door was open. This one I knew wasn't open earlier. I texted my dad to call the man and ask him if he came back home. Meanwhile, I continued watching the screen. On the grainy, dark image, a tall person who resembled only a black shadow on the screen stepped out from the closet.
Sounds like Outlast.
I pulled my arms off the desk as I covered my mouth with my hands in shock. As I did this, however, my left elbow pulled some heavy object from the desk onto the floor, creating a big thud.
Nice.
The person in the image very clearly moved their head up to the ceiling as a response to the noise. They went for the stairs, walking up very, very slowly, step by step. Meanwhile, I got a text back from my dad saying, "No, he's not. I just spoke to him half an hour ago. Why?"
Oh.
I got so caught up in my phone texting my dad to send help that I didn't even pay attention to the monitor. There was a knock at the door. I looked at it and then the screens. The first screen I laid my eyes on was the one showing the person outside the door to the room I was in. When I remembered that door had no lock, the only thing I could think to do was jump out the window into the bushes below. I ran halfway down the block and then stopped when my dad called me. I had him call his friend and ask him if he was expecting somebody in the house. The man said he had no relatives or friends who had his key or would ever let themselves into his home. So he called the cops and had them review the footage. I got to watch all of it, and it showed everything. From the moment the intruder broke the glass to the backyard door, to the moment I jumped out the window and him running away shortly after. The intruder was never found. The footage was just too dark to identify his face. One day I agreed to house it for a friend just for the night.
Why?
He and his family were going on a short vacation and needed somebody to watch their pets and house. I agreed to do it for a small amount of money. I'd been to his house many times before, so I was familiar with the layout.
Why?
Nothing eventful happened at all the entire day. I just fed the 2 cats, the fish, and the birds. I went to sleep on the couch in the sunroom because it was my favorite room in their house. It was a tiny room surrounded by windows with a big TV mounted on the wall. I fell asleep with the TV on, but I woke up not long after. I turned it off, and now the room was dark. I tried to go back to sleep, but I thought I heard the sound of the PVC gate closing outside. I thought it might have just been
What kind of an outside gate is made of PVC? Just saying.
the wind. The room had windows surrounding it in 3 directions, so I was basically looking around in a circle out into the darkness. I sat back down on the couch when I calmed down, but I heard a leaf crunching outside. That's when I knew someone was out there. I took another look outside. There was literally somebody pressed up against the glass to the window behind the couch. They were looking in, but I didn't know if they could see me or not.
The thing's got no neck. I mean, it's not like Boogie 2988 where he doesn't have a neck. It's like it's too thin. He just doesn't have a neck.
I yelled as loud as I could at them to fuck off. I'm not a big dude, but whoever this guy was appeared to be, so I wasn't going out there. Shockingly, this didn't scare the person away. In fact, they walked over to the back door and tried the doorknob. I ran to get the phone, and then I yelled into the sunroom, "I'm calling the police." Thankfully, this worked. He ran off.
You do realize that eliminates the chances of this guy ever being caught, right? Never tell him you're calling the cops, just call him.
I didn't actually call the cops, though. Instead, I texted my friend just to
That makes it even worse.
let him know of an almost break-in. I slept through the night in an upstairs bedroom, locked. The next morning, my friend's family returned to find all of the tires on their sedan that was left behind had been slashed. We speculated that somebody who had it out for their family and knew of the vacation they were taking had some kind of plan to break in. But when that failed, they settled for this. That's just speculation, but still, it's the least terrifying explanation to me.
Least, what else do you have in mind?
When I was in college, I used to work as a babysitter
Boo. Actually, can't see that. PlayStation poster.
on the side to make a little extra cash. One day I saw an ad posted in the library that was requesting a house sitter for the weekend and to inquire through phone. I was used to babysitting, but house sitting sounded even better, same thing minus taking care of kids.
True.
So I called the number as soon as I got home and spoke with a guy named Chuck. I met him that Friday and he showed me around the house. He and his wife eventually went on their way and I was left alone in the house.
It's like the weirdest layout.
I was
of the house
given
I've
one
ever
of the
seen.
spare upstairs bedrooms. I say one of because there were a few. The house was huge. Nothing out of the ordinary was going on at all for the whole day. It was quite uneventful, and I felt like I was missing out on going out since it was a Friday night. But I kept reminding myself that I'd be making $200 for the whole weekend.
Jeez.
Later in the night, I kind of just laid in the guest bed that I'd be sleeping in and watched a movie on demand. I wondered why this couple felt the need to hire somebody to watch their house for the whole weekend. There weren't any pets or anything after all. Though it was a very, very nice house, so it seemed the most obvious that they just wanted a sense of security for their house while they were gone.
If it's a nice house, it was probably in a nice neighborhood, thus they're probably not going to get robbed.
By the time I turned off the TV, I was shot and probably minutes away from falling asleep. But the slight sound of a click, along with a sudden glow in the room, woke me completely. I opened my eyes fully to see light creeping out from under the crack of a door. It took me a second to realize that it was a closet door. I flipped on my side as my heart started beating 200 beats a minute. I pulled the sheets up to my chin and pretended to be asleep. I was certain someone was in that closet, and I was simply too afraid to get out of that bed and make any noises. Words can't describe my fear in that bed, or how with each passing minute I felt more and more like I could possibly die. The closet door opened, I could hear it, but I could not see it as I was facing the opposite way. I closed my eyes and tried my best not to move. The room went dark again as I heard another click, a bit louder this time. The closet door quietly closed in the background, but I didn't hear anything else. I was afraid that whoever it was went back into the closet. I didn't know what to do.
He was coming out the closet?
because they had to have seen me and I didn't want to run for it in fear of being chased. The room was dead silent as I was thinking over my next course of action. Eventually, I decided to just peek over to the other side and make sure the coast was clear. I flipped on my other side. Someone was standing right next to the bed with their hand reaching towards me.
Yo,
My reaction, I pulled my arms up towards me, balled up, and backed up onto the wall in shock. The person stood there showing no signs of leaving. I hopped over the metal bar at the end of the bed, ran for the door, down the stairs, and then out the front door. I ran all the way home, let myself in.
And that is exactly why you need the gun. Why you need a gun, Hillary Clinton.
Called Chuck and explained. I told him it was his problem now and hung up. He tried calling back, but I didn't answer. Maybe there was some story to be told, like they knew this person, or they frequently dealt with break-ins and that's why they needed me. I didn't care though. I didn't even care about the...
Wow, these people are complete assholes. They have problems with break-ins, so like, well, let's just pick this kid, put him in this house, and not tell him anything about the break-ins. Assuming that's the case.
Money. I just didn't want to speak to that Chuck guy ever again, or see that house ever again.
Hey, yo, I'm a subscriber. Maybe my story's in here. Funny. When was this posted? Ooh.
I was at home alone playing Call of Duty between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. During this time, I got a phone call from a random phone number, and of course, the first thing I think of is that it's just somebody who's either prank calling me or just doesn't have the right number.
Yep.
After I hung up, a few seconds later, I received a phone call from the same number. When this happened, I'll admit...
Okay, yo, I actually have a really creepy story to just put in right here. So I've been getting called by a random number for like, a month now. I never picked it up, and I'm like, finally I texted him like, who is this? And it said the number wasn't valid. It was really weird. It was the same number. Anyway, I don't know, it was so weird. Like, literally they called me, and like 2 minutes later I texted it and it said it's an invalid number. Like, that's freaking weird.
I felt a little chill run down my spine, but since I was home alone, I was thinking that if this person was just prank calling me, I could say whatever I want until either I or the person hangs up. So I answered it. I said hello in a sort of annoyed voice, but there was no response. Instead, all I heard was something that still freaks me out. I heard what sounded like a cat hissing, but in a much deeper pitch. Of course, out of surprise, I became defensively hostile. I said into the phone, "Look, buddy, if you call this number again, I'll have my friend who's a police officer track this number and arrest you." But this didn't even faze whoever was on the other end of the phone. Instead, all I got in response was disturbing low-pitched laughter. My heart dropped. "Why are you calling?" I said. Then, this is what still gives me nightmares to this day. As clear as day, in a dark, almost demonic voice, I heard, "I'm just waiting for you to come upstairs."
Yo,
Without hesitation, I ran out of the house and ran across the street to my friend's house and asked his...
Why? I realize criminals are generally stupid, but that would be the perfect crime. You find someone with two-story house, say, "I'm waiting for you to come upstairs." They're obviously gonna flee the house. You're outside, you catch them, and do whatever it is you want to do. That's the perfect crime. I wouldn't leave. I'd just be like, oh, hang up, get my gun, and call the cops. Like, jeez.
His dad to call my dad while trying to explain to him what happened at the same time. After he called my dad, my friend's dad called the police. They arrived in 5 minutes and found nothing upstairs, but they did find the back door open.
check up yes.
My dad used to be a paramedic,
Okay.
and after he retired, he remained good friends with a lot of people, one of them being my godmother, Sally. Sally owned a bunny farm and was very friendly. My family and I loved her dearly, and my parents decided to make her my godmother, but she also had a brother named Terry. Terry was a very quiet man. He never said much and kinda had a weird vibe on him, but he was never around that much, so I didn't give it much thought. It was Thanksgiving, and we all decided to eat together. It was a great dinner, but his presence just really made me uncomfortable. While they were over, my godmother and I were working on the computer my parents used, and I noticed my brother and Terry were in the family room. I went out to see them just watching TV. Nothing was going on. The next day, we all went to church, and Terry asked me if my brother had a Facebook account. I said no, because that was the truth. My brother wasn't into social media. But my thoughts began to wonder why he wanted to befriend my younger brother. At some point, he added me on Facebook, and I noticed that his avatar was that anonymous figure. Weird. Why didn't he have his face on his account? I got an instant message from him. The chat went like this. "Hey there," he said. "Hi. What are you doing up so late?" "I'm a night owl, so I'm usually up late." "Doesn't that make your parents mad?" he said. They don't mind," I said. "A naughty girl, aren't we? Staying up late. Would you like to chat?" "Actually, I gotta go now. I have homework," I said, quickly going invisible and closing him out. What the hell kind of chat was that? He was talking to me like I was some slut or something. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to go to his account. He didn't have his friends list blocked, so I was able to see all his friends. What I saw and what I felt that night will always haunt me. He had over 200 friends, and all of them were young men between the ages of 14 to 18. I was so sick as I saw some of the boys were shirtless in their boxers or worse. It's not the fact that he's into men that freaked me out. No, I wouldn't care if he was gay. But this man was targeting young men. Terry was in his 40s. This is why he wanted to know if my brother had a Facebook account. He wanted to add him in his...
What's the guy's name? Just... I don't know, that YouTuber that got arrested for child pornography.
sick boy list. I was shaking as I realized what kind of man this was. I loved my godmother, but this was just sick. I told my parents and reported his account. My dad was shocked, but he also wasn't too surprised, because apparently Terry was reported for selling drugs to kids and touching them on the news one day. I found out the case was dropped.
So this guy was like, I guess he just said the case was dropped, but this guy was indicted for selling drugs to kids, and you're telling me they didn't watch his Facebook account, and this guy's got child pornography on there? Boy, what is how did he not get caught for that?
Because the boys said they were lying. But now I wonder, were they really lying? Since then, we stopped talking to my godmother and her sick brother. His Facebook account was taken down, but I know he's still out there targeting young men. I still have nightmares of him going after me and my brother. My parents...
I'm not entirely sure that story is true. Like, assuming this takes place in the States, you'd get a lifetime of prison for doing that. And she said, and a storyteller saying, I think he's still out there. No.
recently bought a cabin in the woods and would always spend their weekends up there. My little sister would always go with them, so I spent a lot of time home alone over the weekends.
One evening, I was bored out of my mind, so I plopped my butt down and played some Legend of Zelda. Now, over the years of living in this house, I developed some kind of natural reaction. Every now and again, whenever my parents needed me, they would call me from the top of the stairs, and for the record, my room was in the basement. Then I would pause the game or stop what I was doing and walk to the stairs and ask them what they needed, and it happened very often. So often, I keep an ear out for the faintest sound coming from upstairs. This one particular night, as I was playing Zelda, I heard someone call my name from upstairs.
Brandon?
With this natural instinct kicking in, I got up and walked toward the stairs. It wasn't until I was about halfway to the stairs did I remember that my parents were not home. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me or something. I returned back to the land of Hyrule until I heard my name called again.
Brandon?
This time, it was louder, and the voice wasn't my father's. In fact, it wasn't anyone from my family's voice. Maybe a neighbor's? But I know my neighbors well, and I didn't recognize the voice. I bolted upstairs to investigate, shouting for a response. I got none. I looked out the window in our dining room area that gave me a good view of our street. I live in a house at the far end of a cul-de-sac, so we can see every house on the street. Right before the street opens into the big circle of asphalt, there was a dim streetlight illuminating the street. Standing directly under the light was a dark and shadowy figure. I tried to see if I could recognize him, but I couldn't, until I realized something about the man that made my blood freeze in horror. The man had no shadow, and I know that because he was directly under a light source. His shadow would be beneath him.
No one, if it was right down on him, the shadow would be under him. Like, you couldn't see it. That's not right. That's when you don't have shadows at like noon.
But no. I looked in between the legs. No shadow whatsoever. Suddenly, the streetlight flickered for a split second, and the shadow man disappeared. I then ran frantically around the house, making sure every door and window was locked and secured. I then locked myself in a closet beneath the staircase and played Pokemon on my DS for the rest of the night.
DS, how old is this story? Alright, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.